Welcome, everyone. We begin with the latest developments in the Middle East, where a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah has taken effect in Lebanon. The truce, which was brokered by the United States and France, began at about 4 a.m. local time. It has since been welcomed by thousands of Lebanese civilians who are making their way back home. Western countries and countries in the Middle East have also welcomed the agreement. The new ceasefire deal states that Lebanon's official military and security forces will be the only armed groups deployed in the southern Litani area, apart from the UN peacekeeping force, UNFIL, that's already deployed there. Here's more in this report.
The moment U.S. President Joe Biden came bearing good news, saying Israel and Hezbollah both accepted a ceasefire agreement brokered by the United States and France.
I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. I want to thank President Macron of France for his partnership in reaching this moment.
Shortly after, people filled the streets of Beirut waving Hezbollah flags welcoming the truce, which took effect at 4 o'clock local time. It's an emotional atmosphere as thousands of Lebanese civilians return to their homes, but Israel warns it's not yet safe to return to certain areas. While some excited to meet their families and loved ones, for others, it's back to the scenes of destruction. Governments across the Middle East, including Egypt, Turkey, Jordan, Saudi and Qatar, all welcomed the ceasefire agreement on social media. Iran, which supports Hezbollah, says it welcomes the news of what it called the end of Israel's aggression against Lebanon. Hamas, the militant group ruling Gaza, praised the role played by the Islamic resistance in Lebanon in a statement published by the group on its official Telegram channel. For Lebanon's caretaker, Prime Minister Najib Mikati is appealing to Israel to fully commit and withdraw from all the regions and positions it occupied. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country had weakened Lebanon's Hezbollah and it sent it back decades. France, whose President Emmanuel Macron helped broker the deal with the U.S., welcomed the deal for calling it a new chapter for Lebanon. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni joined her country's voice to welcome the announcement in Lebanon, calling it a significant and very positive development. Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong also welcomed the truce, reiterating a ceasefire call in Gaza.
Welcome the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. The people of Lebanon will welcome this ceasefire. The people of Israel will welcome this ceasefire. What I would say is that we hope that this is a catalyst for a broader ceasefire in the region, and we look forward to the day when there is a ceasefire too in Gaza. Look, we've been calling for a ceasefire in Gaza for over 11 months now, and we see every week the death toll rising, more children, more women.
The ceasefire in Lebanon promises to end a conflict across the Israeli-Lebanese border that has killed thousands of people since it was ignited by the Gaza war last year. Countries like Jordan, Egypt, and the UK say while they expect the deal in Lebanon to become a lasting solution, there must be immediate progress towards a ceasefire deal in Gaza. In the meantime, additional Lebanese troops are making their way along roads in Tyre and Burj al-Shimali in southern Lebanon as the army reinforces its troops. According to a U.S. official, the Lebanese army is expected to deploy 5,000 troops to the south under the ceasefire agreement, but there are questions about whether the country's military can or would confront Hezbollah forces in the area if needed.
Let's get more on this as we bring in former Israeli defense spokesperson Rachel Lester, who joins us from Tel Aviv, and Ala Musa from the public relations sector at the Palestinian Association for Human Rights. He joins us from Saida in Lebanon. Great to have you both on the program today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Right, so let's begin with what you both of you make of the ceasefire agreement. While this is a first step, a major one, many wonder if this signifies an end to the brawl or equate it to a final cessation of hostilities. Walk us through the key terms and conditions of the ceasefire. Rachel, I'll start with you.
Sure. So the key terms of the ceasefire are that the Israeli military will withdraw from southern Lebanon over the course of the next 60 days, while the Lebanese military will deploy in southern Lebanon to keep Hezbollah out of southern Lebanon. There will also be international monitoring by the U.S. and France, the details of which are unclear at the moment. But as to your question about how this is going to play out, it's only as strong, the ceasefire is only as strong as the international players pressuring the people who are causing the war, aka Hezbollah. So if Lebanon succeeds in pressuring Hezbollah to stop firing rockets, to not go south of the Litani River, and if the international community successfully pressures Iran to stop funding Hezbollah with their stockpiles of weapons that they've been, shooting 17,000 rockets over the last 13 months. If Hezbollah and Iran are kept at bay, then I have hope that this is going to be hopefully a lasting ceasefire. But it just depends on these key players.
And Alaa, what resonates with you?
Sorry?
Alaa, I'm speaking to Alaa now, that what resonates with him, over the same issues that I've just talked about and that Rachel has commented on.
Yes, first of all, the agreement of the ceasefire calls for a cessation of hostilities and the withdrawal of the Israeli army within 60 days, while obligating Hezbollah to end its armed presence in a large area of the southern Lebanon. Outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden stated that the agreement was designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities. Under the agreement, thousands of Lebanese army, about 5,000 Lebanese army personnel and United Nations peacekeepers UNIFIL are set to be deployed in the area south of the Litani River. An international committee led by the United States will monitor compliance and by all parts with the resolution. That's about the ceasefire agreement that was held today. That's to begin with. The ceasefire agreement is typically a temporary halt to hostilities intended to provide space for negotiations and humanitarian access. It doesn't necessarily signify a final resolution for ceasefire to evolve into a permanent cessation of hostilities. It requires clear terms, addressing key security concerns and political demands, monitoring mechanisms to prevent violations, commitment for all parties to a peace process that addresses root causes without addressing the underlying issues such as terrestrial disputes or political grievances. Ceasefire risk being fragile and temporary.
Yes, Alaa, this agreement between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon involved a number of international parties, but it was brokered by the U.S. and France. France is expected to help monitor that truce. So far, it seems like the ceasefire is working. What has been your assessment of the Western mediation in this regards? That's for Alaa.
Okay, you mean Western mediation rule?
Yes, your assessment
USA,
so far, yes.
France. Yes, mediation efforts, US and France have historically facilitated peace talks, leveraging diplomatic influence to proxy ceasefire or peace deals. Their involvement often comes with conditions linked to strategic interests. There are many challenges, according to their role. Perceived peers, especially U.S. Support for Israel, can undermine neutrality. So U.S. will stand with Israel, even she gives weapons for Israel, and also France has been more vocal about humanitarian concerns, seeking a balanced approach. Successful mediation requires genuine neutrality, pressure on all sides to respect international law, and a commitment to a just and lasting solution.
Right, and Rachel, this truce and agreement took place under the present administration of the United States, led by Joe Biden. Of course, France also was part of it. So that administration will cease to exist by January. What are your thoughts on the processes that actually led to it, and the fact that you never know what happens when Donald Trump comes into power come January?
That's a fantastic question. I think that the U.S., no matter who's president, always stands behind its ally Israel, and whether it's Biden or Trump in the Oval Office, whoever it is, will be standing behind Israel's right to respond if Hezbollah breaks the ceasefire. So I think Hezbollah knows, or is going into this ceasefire knowing that if they violate the ceasefire, Israel will absolutely respond and defend itself, and the U.S. will back it all the way. But again, it's not only up to the U.S. Whether Hezbollah complies with the ceasefire. It's up to its parent organization, Iran, the Iranian regime. I don't think that the U.S. and France and UNIFIL, which has done absolutely nothing since 2006 to keep peace on the ground, have so much deterrence compared to the idea that Israel could respond at any second if Hezbollah, when and if Hezbollah breaks the ceasefire. I think Israel's been extremely clear that no matter what happens, no matter who's president of any other country, if Hezbollah breaks the ceasefire and endangers Israeli civilians, we will respond, rightfully so.
Right, and walk us through, not that you have the floor, walk us through the position of the Israeli Defense Forces in all of this, and how's the military expected to respond to any potential Hezbollah attack in the region?
The same way we've been responding for the last 13 months. Hezbollah has been firing 17,000 rockets and mortars and suicide drones at Israel for the last over 13 months. And Israel has been responding in kind with, eliminating Hezbollah targets all over Lebanon, and more recently going in on the ground and taking out those targets with ground forces. And I think that if Hezbollah violates the ceasefire, we will just see Israel go back to business as usual. I think the ceasefire is really important to give soldiers time to rest, to give Lebanese civilians time to recuperate and be with their families and go home and try to recover their lives from the war that Hezbollah dragged them into. But as I said, the second that Hezbollah decides it's not going to listen to the international community, or the second that Iran gives it the green light to keep terrorizing our civilians, Israel will go back to airstrikes and ground forces, and it will be just as much of a strong fight as it is now, or as it was yesterday.
Right, Allah, let me come to you now. Let's take a look at the humanitarian situation, the impact of the ceasefire will have, particularly for civilians living in southern Lebanon and northern Israel. Are there any provisions in the agreement for facilitating humanitarian access or aid to affected people?
Okay, according to the humanitarian issues and the humanitarian impact of the conflict, first to start, we have 3 points in that in this title, which is let's start with the displacement and casualties, where millions have been displaced due to the rockets at the beginning of the war. Now, these millions can return to their home, particularly if they have those who left their homes and they come back and they find it. Because many of the Lebanese people of the south who live in the south of Lebanon can't have their home. Their home was destroyed due to the Israeli rockets. Okay, with significant loss of life and destruction of infrastructure. This is the main impact was of the humanitarian impact of the conflict. Refugee camps and host communities face immense pressure also. The second point is access to aid, blockades, security concerns, and political disputes often hinder humanitarian access, يعني not facilitating this crisis. The third point is about the reconstruction challenge. We have a challenge in reconstruction. Who will reconstruct or who will rebuild the homes that was destroyed? Rebuilding requires coordinated international efforts, not only Lebanon. I don't imagine that the Lebanese government can rebuild all the homes and all the companies that was destroyed in the south. So it needs international efforts, international funding, and stable governance. Without addressing the causes of conflict, also reconstruction efforts risk being short-lived.
If this can happen between Israel and Lebanon, then it may be soon. The mediation process will also be positive when it comes to Israel and the crisis between Israel and the Palestinian authorities as well.
I don't understand the question, please.
I'm talking about
I don't hear it very well.
That the present crisis, between Israel and what's going on in the Gaza Strip. Let me put it that way.
Okay, between Israel and Gaza Strip, what is happening now?
Yes.
Okay, Israel say that that it will continue its war on Gaza Strip, and now Gaza Strip is the main part that she will target it. So all its effort and all its forces will be directed to Gaza Strip in order. As she say that she will achieve their goals until it achieve its goals, but this make a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Till now, we have more than 45,000 of militaries and 445,000 one who died in Gaza and over 100,000 who was affected. 80% of Gaza Strip is now destroyed, and no humanitarian issues found in Gaza, and the main sources, life sources, are not found: water, food, and all these. So Israeli forces will increase the destroying Gaza Strip, and I don't know if the ICC will move and will take action against this, and like the last decision that it take. So the situation in Gaza Strip now is very hard, and it will be harder than the months that was ago. In the year that was the last year, Gaza Strip and South Lebanon were together under the fire of the Israeli defending forces. Nowadays, only Gaza Strip is under the attack, so the situation will be hard.
I just want to interject here about some of the things that Allah said. He mentioned that 40,000 people have been killed in Gaza, but he didn't mention how many of them are Hamas terrorists. At least 20,000 people that have been killed in Gaza are Hamas or Islamic Jihad terrorists, and I think that that's worth clarifying to your viewers. I also think it's worth clarifying that Israel and Kogat, the part of the Israeli military that's responsible for humanitarian aid, is still bringing food and water by the truckload into Gaza every single day. And there is absolutely a humanitarian disaster, but you didn't place any of the blame at Hamas, who has been stealing and hijacking and raiding all of the trucks filled with humanitarian aid for the entire 13 months of the war, but especially over the last few weeks. And so as far as how the ceasefire deal in Lebanon will affect Gaza, I think that now that Hamas sees that it's on its own, at least for the next 60 days, it might encourage Hamas to come to the negotiating table, because if their bigger and badder Iranian proxy is not distracting Israel for them anymore, then they might not have as much of a will to keep fighting Israel unlimited and terrorizing our civilians.
Right, and as a closing, let me just...
Can I...
Okay.
Can I...
Go ahead.
Okay. You say that 20,000, one of the killed were Hamas soldiers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, including the more than 10,000 children and more than 10,000 women. They are Hamas. The children that were killed, over 1,000 of children were killed, they are Hamas.
Absolutely. We don't know. First of all, we don't know that Hamas numbers are real.
Under 18 kids that were born in the time of the war, they were Hamas. The kids.
There's absolutely no way for the international community to know that Hamas numbers are real, and there are
children. You say that they killed 20,000 Hamas soldiers. How do you know that they are Hamas? I don't know. They are affecting schools and UNRWA places. You say that these places was having civilians, not soldiers. How? I don't know.
Many UNRWA staff members have been found to be Hamas members, and I think that's not a secret that UNRWA has been hiding Hamas members for the entire war, if not since before the war. UNRWA has really nothing to do with this conversation because they have been proven to be essentially a front for Hamas. As far as the women and children, we know for a fact that Hamas lies about their numbers, lies about the people who they have, who have been killed among them, and they identify male fighters as women in order to raise the count of people who have been killed that look like they're innocent civilians. They mark 17-year-olds who fired rockets and have been committing terrorist attacks as children, but 17-year-olds with RPGs are still terrorists even if they're 17. So listen, there are absolutely a ton of civilian casualties in Gaza, and the reason for that is because Hamas put them there. Hamas started the war, and 13 months later, that's not any different than it was on October 7th. Hamas put these people as human shields to be killed just so that people like you can go on TV and blame Israel for it. But it's Hamas's fault that any of these civilians are dead.
Right. It's been an interesting conversation, but I'm so sorry. We must end it there. It's been a pleasure having you both on the show. I'm sure we'll get back to this another time to continue the conversations, especially because there has been some, positive news. because of what's been going on. But really, I really don't want too much of the back and forth. But if I can just pose one more question that both of you will answer. I want to talk about the legal implications of the legal and long-term implications of the truce. I mean, now that there's some sort of agreement between Israel and Lebanon to stop the hostilities between both of them. Right, Rachel.
Do you mind rephrasing the question?
Right,
what's the legal implication?
The legal and long-term implication of the truce. Is there hope for the rest of the region? Yeah.
I think we saw after 2006 that the legal implications of stopping the Second Lebanon War, when the UN passed UN Resolution 1701 and ordered Hezbollah to stop having any presence or any weapons south of the Litani River, had absolutely no effect in reality. I think the legal implications are not very strong, because the world can say all they want, Hezbollah do this, don't do that. But if Hezbollah doesn't listen, there hasn't, up until now, between 2006 and 2024, there has not been a single person on the ground who is willing to stand up to Hezbollah, not UNIFIL, not the UN. And now that the US and France are getting involved, maybe it'll be a different story. But I don't have so much faith in the legal system. It's all about what the people that are at the negotiating table are willing, how much they're willing to actually hold Hezbollah accountable and hold the Iranian regime accountable. I mean, actions speak louder than legal words.
Right, and Alaa, what do you think, could be the legal implications? What are your hopes that it could be?
Okay, maybe we have political solutions. If we say that long-term implications, political solutions as sustainable peace requires addressing issues like occupation, borders, and rights. I don't know. Maybe the international bodies such as International Criminal Court may play a role if states purchase legal action. Violations of international humanitarian law during the conflict could lead to investigations and accountability measures. So I don't know which legal solution is the best, but we wish that the situation be good and the war stop in both Lebanon and Gaza Strip.
Thank you both for coming on the program today. It was a pleasure speaking with you, thrashing out all these issues. Ala Musa from the Public Relations Sector at the Palestinian Association for Human Rights. He joined us from Saida in Lebanon, and former Israeli Defense spokesperson Rachel Lester, who joined us from Tel Aviv. Thank you both for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having us.